You can absolutely conquer whatever it is you choose to confront. In this show, we talk PTG, we listen and believe, we support and empower.
Hey, that's what I always dreamed of, but I was nervous sometimes.
Yeah.
Each time I moved a little closer and a little closer
Yeah.
and a little closer,
Yeah.
and some told me, just take a leap of faith.
There you
Go
go.
ahead, let's jump.
Ready? Let's go. Leap of faith. There you go. Whoa.
Whether you have experienced domestic violence personally or not, someone you know has. Your circle of family, friends, acquaintances, 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men will experience domestic violence at some point in their life. Physical abuse is only one of the many forms of domestic violence. Survivors also report experience of verbal, emotional, spiritual, sexual, financial, electronic, and so much more. Domestic violence does not discriminate. It can leave you traumatized and devastated, mentally, emotionally, financially. You can find yourself homeless, jobless, helpless. The list can go on. There's blankets of insecurities, triggers, doubts, and other residual effects that become hurdles that impact our life as we do our best to move on. Many people associate butterflies with a sense of freedom. We've been taught along the way to focus on the transformation that takes place inside of the cocoon. I invite you to take a moment to conceptualize all the odds the caterpillar was up against and needed to defeat in order to get to a safe place, to build its cocoon and actually experience the transformation. My name is A. Garcia. I am a mother and survivor of a double attempted homicide. Now, I'm dedicating my life to take yours to the next level by experiencing post-traumatic growth to begin a new chapter in your life. Let's get started on this journey together.
Hey, Garcia here with Confronting Domestic Violence. Thank you for tuning in as we believe that you cannot conquer what you choose not to confront. Confronting is not a negative thing. It just means that you care enough to seek a solution. So today, I just want to invite you to listen to Vanessa's story and really think about the emotion that takes place through her journey. And I pause and I think about it because I just had about 3 minutes of insight. And I just said, please, I don't want to hear anymore until it's time to record because I want it to be so authentic. And here she is today to share her story. Please welcome Vanessa.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. So, yeah, my name's Vanessa. I am one of 5 kids to my mother, who is now in heaven, and she did a wonderful job at raising my older siblings, I have about a 15-year difference with my oldest sister, who raised me. And before I go there, I'll just say I am a mother of 4 kids and feel like I'm doing the best I can to be a good mother because I didn't have my mother. So I feel like out of any negative, you can get a positive. I have 4 kids. I got 2 dogs, a snake, a big family. And I feel like I'm a good mother despite all the parameters that we're given as to what is a good mom. Every mom who's there for her kids is a good mom, no matter what anyone says. I've learned to block those kind of thoughts out, block what anyone's opinion is about mothering and parenting, because no one's perfect and there's no manual.
And Vanessa, I'm sorry, I want to have a little bit of dialogue right here because I have not had anybody on the show as of yet until right now
Mhm.
that that I share a similar experience of. My mother left when I was 2, and that was it. I think I saw her a few times in between. And I feel the same exact way, that a mother being present regardless of circumstances and situations, decisions, outside, things that we cannot control, as long as you're there, that's right. You're a good mother, making sure
Right.
that there's clothes on the back, food on the
Mhm.
table, and a bed to sleep in. And
Exactly.
and I'm here to acknowledge that and say that is right. You are a good mother. And not caring about what anybody has to say or what their opinion is based on your mothering is exactly that. We do not have control of what we were born into, raised in, or grew up in our surroundings. And I just want to acknowledge and applaud you for being that mom that stayed and is doing her thing.
Thank you. I would attribute a lot of the way I think about myself and not caring about outside opinions and being a strong female in this world to my older sister who raised me. She was 19 when I was about 4. I think I was 4. I don't call her mom, I call her by her name because I was old enough to know who's my sister, who's my brother, who my parents were. I have a younger sister who's about 3 years older, or sorry, 3 years younger. She was probably not even 1, maybe 1. She does call my sister mom. So when she was 19, my father, who was an alcoholic and I believe also drug user, he was abusive in our home to my mother, to my oldest sister who raised me, because a lot of times she would step in to defend my mom. So she would obviously get some of it too. But I was told that he would even hit me, and I was like a toddler. He obviously was not a very good father in that aspect, but he did end up. I know my mother had wanted to leave, and she may have planned to leave to Tijuana to go stay with my uncle, I believe is the story. I was little and they told me the story, but I believe that was the story, is that she wanted to leave, planned to leave. He somehow found out and showed up to her work. She worked in a factory, like a jewelry factory in Los Angeles. And he ended up driving with her to, I believe it was somewhere in San Bernardino or something, and he stabbed her to death and left her in the car. She was found days later up in San Bernardino. And that was when my sister was 19 and had to she had just gotten married and she was pregnant. I think she was pretty far along too. And then this happened and she all of a sudden had to take me in, my little sister. I have 2 older siblings, a brother and a sister. They were teenagers in high school. She had to take all of us in all of a sudden, deal with everyone's emotions and trauma and her emotions and being pregnant. Can you imagine? I can't imagine. Yeah, she ended up raising me and my siblings. My brother was older, so I think he was in and out of the house. She's 19, so he was probably 17. They're not that far apart. Her going through all that, as she raised me, she was sure to instill positivity in me. She would always tell us, you can do this, you can do that. You're number one. She was a cheerleader the whole time raising us. I did, I don't recall any of the abuse, but when I was in 5th grade, I did started to have some dreams about my mother and my dad arguing in the bed, and then him doing things to her, and they end up in the bathroom. And for a long time, I thought that was how she died. This was before they told me how she died, because they didn't tell me or my sister till we were older. But I told my sister, "This is the dream I'm having, and is this how she died?" And she ended up saying, "No, but this is something that actually happened. This is an event that he actually did. He was beating her up in the bathroom, choking her, and that she was choking and he foaming at the mouth. So from in my mind, it was like, oh, he's killing her. In my so I thought that was how she died for a long time. So then when I realized it was a memory, I did do a little bit of counseling. I was like a school counselor that she had me talking to for a little bit to help me work through it because it was affecting me. And this was I was 4, this turned into a dream. I thought how she died, but when I was older and I realized this is something real that happened and I was there, it was hard for me to process as a 5th grader. Um, so the counseling did help a little. But that's really the only counseling I've ever had or therapy for that. I've always done okay because, like I said, my sister's always kept positivity in us and being our cheerleader growing up.
Wow. That is a lot to take in right now. I mean, wow. In 5th grade. And you said you were having these dreams for quite some time. If that wasn't,
Yeah, but I never talked about it, and then it just in my mind, I'm like, "Oh, that's how my mom died." Like,
you kind of accepted it, you formulated what that dream represented as like the way to maybe accept the way that it happened. Do you think that was a part of it, like putting closure? Because you said you didn't talk about it, you just because you dreamt it, you believe that's just what it was. So you had,
yeah,
do you
I think
think,
maybe I think I was afraid to talk about it. We didn't really talk about it at all growing up, and like I said, they hadn't told me yet exactly how. I just knew that she wasn't there. Um,
okay, so you didn't learn about it in 5th grade, then you learned about it even after that?
yeah, even after that, 'cause she still didn't tell me. Like she's no, that's not how she died, but yes, that did happen. He did do that to her. You were there because I guess I used to sleep in the bed with them. So yeah, even that I still didn't find out until later, till I was a teenager.
Yeah, back in those days, seeing a therapist or even having the funds to see counseling just really wasn't around. Mental health wasn't something that was talked about or socially accepted back then like it is today, which is great for those that can speak up about it.
Hmm.
And there was at least there were means at the school for you. Having that safe space to talk and having that trust there, and I'm happy that you said that it actually helped because not a lot of people even have a belief system that counseling or talking or coaching can help.
Yeah.
And I also think that your sister being so strong and instilling that positivity to have you believe in yourself and have self-esteem and have self-respect, that's so important and to survive in the world. So she was giving you being your cheerleader, she was giving you survival skills in your psyche. Psychologically, you need to be confident and know who you are and believe in yourself in order to take chances, make decisions, and think about what's right for you. So your brother and your sister, you said they were like 17 and you had another sister that was
Yeah.
between.
She's 10 years older than me. So if I was about 4, she was probably about 14. So she was still in high school. I know they were all in high school.
So the three teenagers, so 19, 17, 15.
Hmm.
This was probably and obviously the most impactful for those three, and
Yeah.
your sister having no choice but to be the maturest of them all and take full responsibility while being pregnant with her own. My goodness, I cannot imagine that. You said that early. Can you imagine? And I'm like, heck no, I cannot imagine.
No, I can't imagine. No,
You
not at
know,
all.
and do you think that she got married at a young age to like to get out of the house and be on her own and have her own?
Absolutely. I do. I do.
Yeah.
It was like a it was I don't know if it was like her it was a high school. So I don't know if it was her high school sweetheart, but she met in high school and he joined the military. And I think that's what made it easier for them to get married is that he joined the military. And yeah, I think she got out of there as soon as she could. And, she didn't graduate high school because she had to help take care of my mom. I think it was when she had me and then she had my little sister. So she was helping my mom and she ended up not graduating high school. So, yeah, so I think she thought getting married is a good way out of the house. But when all that happened, she didn't want to let us go to foster care either because foster cares are they don't have the best reputations and you hear horrible stories. So she was adamant about keeping us all together no matter what.
How beautiful. How
Yeah.
beautiful. So were your other siblings, did it make you guys bond tighter, stronger? Was there resistance? How was the dynamics at that point?
And we were definitely stronger as siblings because we only have each other. We don't have our parents. We don't have grandparents. They were dead before this too. So we did have some uncles and aunts, but really I think it was just she knew it was all on her because our uncles and aunts, I don't think they were in a position to be able to take in kids, and I think she made the best decision. But
Yeah.
my older brother he was in a gang in LA and he ended up in prison for a long time. But and I think he got from what my sister had mentioned is that his gang activity ramped up after my mom died, which is I guess understandable. He was working his emotions out in that way. And then my sister, who's 10 years older than me, the one younger than my brother, I've never really talked about it with her that thoroughly. I'm not sure how she worked it out. My sister would probably know because obviously they were older, they talked. So I was 4 and my little sister was 1. There is a picture somewhere that I seen where me and my younger sister are hugging each other crying, and I was told that's because we were asking for our mom. Even little, even though I don't remember, you do still have to work through emotions. That's
Right.
probably why starting back then my sister started realizing she has to be the cheerleader. She has to be positive or these kids are going to be messed up and traumatized and you know what I mean?
Yeah. What a strong woman. Wow.
Yeah. She did. I think she was strong for a long time and a lot of trauma, a lot of things she's gone through. You know, she's got a whole long story, but divorce and just my sister, who's the one I told you I never really talked about it with her. So it's at 17, she ended up getting a spinal infection in her spine and ended up paralyzed. She's an incomplete quadriplegic. So again, then that happened. So it's like my mom died, and a few years later, that happens to my sister, where she becomes paralyzed. So then that's something else that affects the family and just something. So going back to that, I don't know how, but she always kept it positive with us. She just, again, maybe realizing if I don't, we're going to be messed up. She must have been. And then obviously she grew up we were little and she grew up with the household of my dad being abusive and all that stuff, and I'm sure she was trying to provide the complete opposite for us. And but I know later on it did affect her being so strong for a long time. I think she didn't take care of herself for a long time. She ended up with really bad anxiety, panic attack. There was a point where I had to drive her to her appointment. She couldn't drive anywhere. She couldn't be out of the house for too long. It did end up affecting her years later. Probably what, into her 30s, I think. is when it started to affect her.
Wow.
So therapy is important because I don't think she did therapy enough, which is why I think she ended up with those attacks.
Definitely. That's actually that's what I was just going to talk about is how trauma, when we respond in a way that is like strictly survival. And I'm guilty of that for sure, 100%. Most of us are because we don't even know it. We are just so driven and focused on doing what we have to do and trying to decipher what's the right thing to do or the best thing to do because they might not be the same at the same time. And when we don't take that moment, and sometimes we don't have that moment, we just don't. I keep thinking about your sister,
Yeah,
pregnant, newlywed, 4 kids. She had no time to deal with.
right. There's no time to think about it.
No,
Yeah,
none. And then the postpartum, I'm sure that if that hit, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine if that hit, the
yeah,
combination of
yeah.
everything. And then, like you said, later in life, it it became different things. It resulted in other things because it was not confronted. Hmm.
Right.
Right. So
Or not confronted enough because you with something like that, you're gonna need a lot of therapy, not
yeah,
just 1 or 2 sessions.
that's right. That's right. That's a continuous thing.
Hmm.
And are all of you guys still very tight?
Yeah, we are. We all live. Well, yeah, I think we're all in California right now. We've always been close by. None of us has ever. My sister did recently. She was in Texas, but then she moved back because she felt like she was too far from us. But she got married. Her husband's work was over there, so she lived there for a little bit, but came back as soon as she could. And she was close to my older sister, who's you can say is like her best friend. I think they're close. They're closer them to each other. I'm closer with my little sister because we're only 3 years apart. They're only like 3 years apart. Plus, they've experienced all that together, also.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So when you were a teenager, and during teenage years, during our hormonal changes and our brains being split apart and not very logical, how were you able, like, how did you find out the truth? And how did that impact your outlook from that moment on?
I don't remember when I found out. I don't remember the exact moment when they told me. And really, I don't know why, but it didn't affect me too much. I don't know if I just had blocked emotion towards that subject off because like I said, we don't talk about it that much as a family. You just, if you don't need to, we don't. So I guess you could say it's not really talked about at all. So I don't remember when they told me exactly, and it didn't affect me really. I just was like, okay, and moved on. But
So when you say it didn't affect me, are you referring to mentally because you already had the dreams and you had already dealt with the absence of her and the love and the cheerleading from your sister? Or are you talking like emotionally? Sorry,
I think
emotionally.
emotionally it didn't affect me. And to be honest, the dreams I was having, or like that event, or that it wasn't a dream, I guess it's a memory. That memory I was having in my dreams was more traumatic than finding out how she actually died because I was seeing it. Like what I was seeing was traumatic.
Right. And you had
Uh,
worked through a lot of that stuff in grammar school already, like when you're
right.
with your.
Yes. Because it, like I said, it did help. And if I needed to talk about it, my sister would talk about it with me. But I think since that was more traumatic to me, visual, and it was very real, once I found out how she actually died, I was okay mentally, emotionally. It didn't, that's how I mean, it didn't affect me as I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel like crying. I didn't feel like I needed to talk about it more. It was more just like a fact for me.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So were you or have you did you learn I understand that you guys didn't talk about it, but that doesn't mean that it was off limits to talk about. It was very open. If you had a desire or a need, then it was available. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay. So how, or even if, did it affect you as it relates to then your personal relationships when you started dating? Were you able to identify when somebody was, or were you ever exposed to somebody who was abusive, whether it was verbally, mentally, physically, emotionally, or any of those things? Or were you able to avoid
Um,
it the whole time?
no, I didn't. I guess the absence of a father. My sister did marry. He did raise us, but they did end up separating. But I didn't get. He wasn't like a father. He was a father, but not like emotionally. He wasn't a big hugger. He wasn't a big. Oh, I love you. Oh, you're a princess. You're this. He wasn't much of that. He was there to provide, have some jokes here and there. We did do stuff. One thing we had in common is we were the only two in the house who liked to watch scary movies. So I would watch scary movies with him. But the absence of that fatherly feeling was definitely there. I ended up looking for that in boys in high school, and I ended up pregnant at 17, my senior year. And then my baby's daddy, he ended up being a drug addict. He got on crystal meth. While he was on crystal meth, I did experience some domestic violence from him. That brought full circle in the moment of my father and how he was an alcoholic and did drugs and was abusive. So I did think about it in the moment, but I feel like when that happened, I had already had two kids when that first happened to me. So I felt embarrassed and alone about it, and I didn't ever say anything except my sister-in-law. She wasn't my sister-in-law, but his sister-in-law, his brother's wife, noticed some behavior on his part and gave me she I don't know where she got it, but she gave me a pamphlet on domestic violence. Just a little thing. She was just basically trying to reach out without being invasive and asking questions, which I thought was amazing because it made me feel like seen. And she's like, you don't ever have to let anyone put hands on you. Just know that. She said that to me and handed me the pamphlet, and I, looked at it, and so I didn't leave because it wasn't a daily thing. He did end up. This was all like a short period of time. This was, I think, a matter of 2 months where it started, and then he realized what he was doing, and then he needed to change, and he stopped. He went cold turkey off of meth in one day,
Wow.
and then that also stopped the. It was mostly pushing, and he never punched me or anything like that. It was pushing and aggressive behavior, which is still abusive, right? So yeah, that I did go through it, and I did think about my mom during that time, and think about I did think, am I going to end up like her? That crossed my mind, thinking, if I stay here, am I going to end up like her?
Were you afraid?
I was afraid, yeah.
Were you afraid for
And
your children?
I was afraid not for them. I didn't feel like he would hurt them, but I felt like he would hurt me further. Because there was one time where he pulled out a knife, and I think that was the moment where I was like, my mom flashed, and I'm like, I'm going to end up like her. And
Did
So
he?
yeah, I wasn't afraid for my kids. I was afraid for them not having me, and I was afraid of a full circle. That's what I was afraid of. Them not having me because of a situation like that.
Did he know that's what you feared? Did he know that? Did he know how your mother was
Yes,
stabbed? Did he know that was a fear of yours?
not at the time, not till later on where we talked about things when obviously when he was off of drugs, and later down the line I did express that to him, and he was really apologetic and telling me that I was not in the right state of mind. I'm sorry I did that. This just,
Yeah.
but yeah, I did express that to him eventually. And he was really
And
sorry for doing that because he knows that's a sensitive topic.
absolutely. And like you said, this was almost full circle 360 here. We're talking about everything that you had worked through, all of the emotions that you had navigated already. And by the time you got to the space where you were forming your own family, growing your own family, and then here you are back to where you
Yeah.
were at 4 years old. And then for it to really surface. So then the double fear, the impact of that situation now being a potential reality for yourself, like
Yeah.
repeating the pattern, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
And I just remember that no one, I don't think people understand the fear of talking about it or reaching out to someone when you're going through that. Because I genuinely, as afraid as I was of what was happening to me, I was afraid to tell someone. I was afraid of what they would think of me. Like my sister to this day does not know. She doesn't know that any of that happened to me. And I never told her. And she would, his mom once in a while would come and bring groceries to help, just like family stops by. And my sister had stopped by once and done the same thing, brought some groceries. And because we were young, had young kids, and thankfully we had some family to help us with things like that. But yeah, I never told my sister, and I never actually told anyone.
wow. Thank you for being so vulnerable here on the CTV platform where we have many listeners that are also afraid to speak up and feel like they have nowhere to go to talk about it. And there's also a lot of people that have family members or loved ones or friends that they see going through it and they want to help in some way and not be invasive. And you said a lot of impactful things on many different levels just in this short amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for our listeners, if you see somebody and know somebody who's going through something and you don't want to be invasive, but you want to be helpful, like Vanessa just shared, passing a pamphlet or any kind of resource, any sort of informative literature to help them maybe see it for themselves. If it's just questions, if it's a power and control wheel, if it's a website, if it's an app, it doesn't matter. We all need help when we're in that situation and we all feel like we're too deep in or too ashamed. I can't say we all, I apologize, but most of us feel like we're too deep in, ashamed, or so fearful that we're stagnated, we're stuck. We feel that way. And for you to have been able to just at the age of 4 experience a loss of a parent, and then obviously I didn't even ask what happened to your dad. Did he go to jail? What did they find
Oh,
out? Like,
he no, he. I imagine he took off to Mexico, so the
mm,
border's close, and no, so he never got caught or found. We never got in contact with him ever again. But growing up, I remember my sister made sure school things, school concerts, school anything televised, I was not allowed to be on because she didn't want him to know where we were. But I believe he was in Mexico probably most of the time. We did find out 2 years ago. I think my brother got in contact with some cousin or something that he was down there. He did remarry. He never had any other kids, but he had passed away. He died from cirrhosis of the liver. So it means he never stopped drinking.
wow.
So
Yeah. Wow. all in all, still, now you didn't just lose a parent, you lost both parents.
Yeah, and I will say that really it actually did affect me when I found out, and I did cry because you're what you just said, I lost both parents because at least even though I wasn't in contact with him, we didn't know exactly where he was, I knew that I had a parent out there somewhere, and that what if by coincidence someday we run into each other? So when I found that out, I did grieve it for a little moment because it is your parent, and at that point I'm like, okay, I really am alone now. I don't have parents. Even though I'm not alone, I have family. You have that moment of feeling like you have no, I don't know how to put it. Just I just felt orphaned. At that point I did feel orphaned.
Yeah, I also can relate to that. And yes, I never put it in that terminology, which I like. I felt orphaned. Um, but I do know what that feels like because it's the way that I describe it is like having no fallback. You have nowhere to go. If something happens, it's on you. You're on your own. Thankfully, you have sisters, brothers. There is support there. That I don't share the same story. My situation's a little bit different, but yeah, I know what you're saying as it relates to feeling orphaned and no fallback, nowhere to really go to your parent for or about or
Yeah.
and I think that I've been told several times I haven't been told several times. I've heard it several times. So I tell myself, or I've told myself several times, you can't miss what you didn't have. And yes, although it's your parents, and yeah, it hurts, like you said, for a minute, and then keep on and keep going. And that's a part of that survival, right? Feel like you dealt with it for those minutes. That was good enough. And when you have kids and it's the go, never stop, keep going and dealing with life and the ins and the outs and all that, it takes a while to, if ever, like where you really do face it and have this true peace behind it. And I feel like what you shared before is what got you there really quickly. And that is both your sister and you have been able to take negatives and turn them into positives. And that's what post traumatic growth is all about because when we experience such significant trauma where it devastates our entire lives, it shifts everything around. And like
Yeah.
we said, we can't control the outside circumstances. We can barely control the outcome of our decisions. You
Yeah.
know, we can't control it like ourselves. And it's amazing to know that not only did your sister start with breaking that chain, but even in your teenage years when you were still coping from the work that you did in fifth grade, sixth grade, and then jumping ahead to your young, not even 20s, you're 17. And like I said, growing your family. And here you are faced with the full cycle of the short life that you just experienced. And
Mhm.
for you to have been able to break those cycles within a matter of a short time with your baby daddy husband and to raise your kids the way that you have, again, that is the definition of post traumatic growth, taking what you experienced and becoming a stronger, smarter person and coping, leveling up your coping and what you're doing with it, how you're coping and what you're doing with that intelligence, what you're doing with that strength. And you're raising your kids with that. You're feeding them emotional intelligence by showing them what is not acceptable. And it
Right.
sounds like you're repeating the positivity that you've learned as it relates to being the cheerleader and letting them believe in themselves and not letting them, but teaching them to believe in themselves and to hold their confidence. And that's that you are a great mom.
Thank you. We're all great moms. Everyone is a great mom. If you're taking care of your kids, providing for them, you're teaching them to be better people in this world, you're a good mom.
That's right. That's right. And I just want to thank you again for trusting me and for trusting and believing in our mission here at Confronting Domestic Violence. And you said a couple other things that I would like to shed some light on to the listeners. You said that your sister did not allow you to be on social media or TV or in any type of media,
Yeah.
because privacy was important. And privacy and safety are the two things that are the most important. Think about as a parent for your child, you are protecting and providing. That's what it is, their health and safety. So I know we like to post and put our life online. If you're putting your life on the line, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you're posting, I call it advertising. So if you want to advertise, you know, what you're doing, who you're with, where you're at, think twice about it if you feel like you or your children might be in danger. That was very smart of her. And very important that you complied with that, because it wouldn't have just been you, it would have been your whole family that you could have potentially exposed. So
Yeah.
that's really important. And again, allowing this space to be the first time that you've shared some of this deep personal experiences. I and you at together are showing that you can be safe and vulnerable at the same time, speaking up, using your voice, sharing your story with others or your real-time situation. Nobody should suffer alone, ever. And Vanessa, if you have a wounds to wisdom statement that you can come up with to share to our audience, I would love to hear it.
Wounds to wisdom. Just that same thing. Anything negative can be turned into a positive. It's all on how you look at it. If you want to look at it and turn it into a pity party, it's going to be a pity party. If you want to look at it and make it turn you into your superpower, it'll be your superpower. So always turn your negative into a positive.
Oh my gosh, I love it. That was excellent. And right on the spot. Oh my gosh. So Vanessa, you shared that you are going on new ventures in your life and you are establishing a business for yourself and really looking to help people get visibility. So if you would like to share with our audience where they can find you and who you help.
Great, thank you. Yes, I am getting ready to launch Envision MD Marketing. I help physicians in the cosmetic surgery, aesthetic fields grow their online presence and community through Google Business Profile and social media to just help scale your business.
All right. Congratulations on that. Thank you so much. I appreciate the information. And for all of our listeners, again, that is Envision MD Marketing. And Vanessa, thank you so much for being on the show today and for sharing your story and for allowing me to pause in between and just ask additional questions and share some insight. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm happy to share and help others.
Thank you.
Confronting Domestic Violence is a 501c3. All contributions, volunteers, and sponsorships are welcomed. It takes a community to make a difference. Nobody should suffer alone. Please scan the QR code.